So I just saw Emerald Fennell's Saltburn and it was very interesting. Recently, I was lucky enough to have a chance to attend the 2023 IFF Boston Fall Focus. It was my first film festival experience. Over 4 days, I got to see 11 different movies from all over the world, different languages, different directors. Some of these movies my favorite of the year. Every movie very different, but they all had one constant, and that was when they were being introduced by the IFF Boston director, he would make reference to a super secret screening next week that he was not legally allowed to say what it was, and that was only available to IFF Boston and Brattle members. Now, of course, this absolutely drove me up the wall. I was dying to know what it was, and I spent the next few days heavily deliberating if I should spend a redacted amount of money to become a member. And on the last day of the festival, I finally cracked and I did it. And as a result of that, I found out that the movie I would be seeing was Saltburn. Seeing this movie under these circumstances was absolutely fantastic. It was a completely packed theater. There was a long line going outside before people started being seated. Nobody knew what we were getting into, but everybody was there to do it in a communal experience. I especially had no idea what I was getting into. I haven't had a chance personally to see Promising Young Woman. It's a movie I know a lot of people love and a lot of people hate. So I really had no idea what kind of vision I was going to be getting from Emerald Fennell when I strapped in for Saltburn. But holy shit, was it a strong one. Fennell is clearly a director with an incredibly strong vision and style, and that comes across incredibly in this movie. I think she executes on that vision pretty much in every way possible, and a large reason for that is the cinematography from Linus Sandgren, who is absolutely frying in this movie. It's one of the best shot movies of the year. It has some of my favorite individual shots of the year. And I think the cinematography and the visual style of the movie is a big part of its kind of atmosphere and the way it makes you feel. And that was something that really went a long way for me and that I appreciated. Something else I really appreciated in this movie was the ensemble, which is one of the best of the year. Barry Keoghan gives kind of a tour de force performance. He is in every scene in the movie and pretty much every frame. So the movie is largely resting on his shoulders, and he completely delivers. His character is one that you see a lot of different sides of throughout the movie, and while in the short term some of those sides can feel a little perplexing, Keoghan does a fantastic job of selling why the character would be acting this way, why they'd be motivated to do this, stuff like that. And clearly he was up for absolutely anything. There are a couple scenes in this movie, specifically one in a bathtub and one outside on a rainy day, that I don't want to say any more about, but Keoghan is putting his all into it, and the scene's got big reactions in my theater. Also completely fantastic in this movie is Jacob Elordi. Holy hell, is this guy hot. This is one of the hottest people I've ever seen in a movie, but he was also fantastic as this character. I'd only seen Elordi in a couple episodes of Euphoria, so I wasn't very familiar with him. He played this character pitch perfect. You absolutely buy the character's social status and their personality and where they come from and everything like that because of Elordi's performance. And I think those two are a big reason the movie is as interesting and must watch as it is. The supporting cast backing them up are no slouches either. Rosamund Pike and Richard E. Grant are hilarious in this movie. They have some of the movie's funniest lines, but they also are kind of the movie's veterans who at the drop of a hat can kind of flip it on and become captivating in a totally different way. Also really great, Archie Madekwe, who was the main character in this year's Gran Turismo, Alison Oliver, and Carrie Mulligan and Paul Reese in small roles were just great. The early showings of this movie have kind of gained a reputation of being divisive, and I think the biggest source of that is Fennell's writing and the screenplay. There are moments in the movie that some big swings are taken in terms of character motivations and plot points, and I can see them not working for people and kind of very much altering their opinion of the movie in some way. Even for me, there were one or two where I was kind of like, That's interesting. But I will say this unpredictability from the script is one of the reasons I enjoyed the movie so much. I never knew what was going to happen next, visually because of Fennell's collaboration with Sandgren, but in terms of the actual narrative, Fennell constantly had me guessing. I never knew what characters were going to do next, what was going to happen in the plot next, and that made for a super interesting viewing experience that, again, I was so happy I was in a packed house. It made it feel very communal, and there were some scenes that just got really big reactions. One of the aforementioned Barry Keoghan scenes is one of them. But I think as a result of this divisive script, people are going to label this movie style over substance. And while I can see where they're coming from, I personally don't agree. The movie is dripping with style, yes, but I think it's a very layered story, and there is a lot going on with the characters that make it very interesting. The movie does have something to say, and that is perhaps the best thing I can say about this movie, is not only does it have something to say, but it's a movie that has to be talked about. I'm incredibly thankful that I got to see this movie almost a month early, and I've kind of been holding it over the heads of some friends a little, but the double-edged sword there is that I now have to wait a month to discuss this movie with anybody, when it is a movie that absolutely deserves discussion, long-form, even debate maybe. People won't all agree about this movie, but I think there is a lot of stuff to talk about that make this movie totally worth it, and I think worth seeing in a theater. I hope that the word of mouth snowball that is already kind of forming for this movie will only continue, and that when the movie releases in theaters, that a lot of people will go, because I think it's a movie that needs to be seen with people and needs to be talked about. Very few movies these days are this unique. I've seen it compared a lot to The Talented Mr. Ripley. I can't actually speak to that, but it's a very unique movie that I think kind of has to be seen in a theater, and that is probably the biggest thing I can say for it. Another thing I'll say for it, it's a very sexy movie, a surprisingly sexy movie, and a movie that in a day and age where there's sort of starting to be some debate over the importance of sexuality or sex acts being depicted in movies, I felt that this was a movie where those were important to the story and kind of contributed to the movie. Overall, I would absolutely recommend this movie. I can't say that everybody will like it. In fact, I'll say for sure that not everybody will like it. Some people will hate this movie. Some people will have this movie as their number one movie of the year. But everyone should see this movie because it is so worthy of discussion and so worthy of deep thought. I've been thinking about this movie a lot since I've seen it. Some moments it goes down in my estimation, some moments it goes up. It's an incredibly interesting movie that deserves to be seen, and I hope people do go see it. I really liked this movie, and I can't wait to rewatch it. And yeah, that's what I'll say about Saltburn. So this video is kind of out of the blue, maybe for some people. There might be a couple people here watching the video now that saw my 3 video essays I made like 6 years ago. And over the years since I made those, I've kind of revisited them every once in a while. And some people left really nice comments saying, you know, you should make more videos. I really enjoyed your take, stuff like that. And it wasn't a lot of people, but it was enough to kind of push me to want to do this again. And the last few months I've really gotten back into movies again. It's something I've always loved, but I kind of fell out of it during the pandemic. But I'm back being absolutely in love with movies, and I can't wait to make more videos about them. So if there is anybody watching this video right now that is subscribed to me from that original 3 videos, thank you so much. If you're watching this video 6 years later, you're fucking crazy, but I'm glad you're here. And the people that aren't like that, if you're here watching this video, thank you. But yeah, more to come. I hope you all go see Saltburn, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye!